hundreds, maybe thousands of people on the beach watching the first flight of the Wright brothers, and they were pioneering the airspace. And now, and there they flew the first airplane. And now there's GitHub Copilot that's pioneering the AI development in your IDE experience, writing code. And today, me and Yuliya are going to talk about GitHub Copilot and 10 ways to elevate your coding skills.
All right.
I introduced myself, sorry. I'm Thijs Limmen. I'm a DevOps consultant at Xebia, and I help customers with DevOps, but also these days with enablement with GitHub Copilot. Seeing the amount of people in this room, Copilot is pretty popular, and we see also a lot of customers that are asking us to help them enable their developers with GitHub Copilot.
All right, well, my name is Yuliya, as Thijs already mentioned. I also work at Xebia as a software development consultant, whatever it means. It's a very broad term. I'm trying to figure out by myself. Yeah, but today, well, we will talk about Copilot. Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's start. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, this is already a good start, right? All right. Well, first of all, like there are quite a lot of people. So who are using GitHub Copilot every day? Well, there's quite some people, and you still came to the session. That's impressive. Who never used it? Well, that's also nice because I'm pretty sure you will learn something today. And who used it for a little bit and then thought, I mean, it's not worth it. It's okay, you know, to have your own opinion. It's
maybe
fine.
After today you will install it again and start using it.
Or maybe you will say, I'm right, this is fine, yes. And then you will create another session saying, you know, it's not worth it. All right, so I think it's not a secret for, well, most of you that GitHub Copilot is AI pair programmer. And why are we talking about it today? Why it's so special so that we are spending 45 minutes of our time talking about another tool? So sometimes I'm talking to some developers who didn't really use it, or use it really briefly, and most of them thinking that it's just code completion tool. But in the end, today it's capable of much more. And today with Thijs we will show like more use cases. In the end, it should bring you to more productive and more happy, well, developer flow. And I think, well, happiness is one of the ultimate goals. So let's see if we will come closer today.
Who doesn't want to be happy?
Yeah, well. All right. Well, luckily for most of the developers, you can integrate it in, well, most popular development environments. So Visual Studio Code, Vim, and JetBrains. Unfortunately for developers, it's not free. So there are different types of licenses. It's individual for more like personal use. It's business for small and for medium businesses. It has more features, more like privacy features. And for really big companies, it's enterprise license. It has also more features to offer, like summaries for pull requests, GitHub chat in the browser, and just easy way to manage licenses in the big enterprise companies. So most of the businesses most likely will use the business license. All right, if you are using a new tool, overall, of course, you can use it just blindly, but if you want to maximize what can it give it to you, it's nice to know how does it work behind the scenes. So let's just dive in the, well, operational part of it. So everything starts, of course, with your code. In your development environment, and well, there is some code here and some open tabs. And this is called context. So context is basically related information to your code, to your question, let's say. It can be, well, now it can be a lot of things. It can be selected code, it can be just your cursor, it can be the full file, but, well, yeah, we call it context. And it's really nice to know that it's not unlimited, so you can't use all your repository and say, I don't know, fix everything, right? Yes. So it should be really like not small, but it's limited. It's nice to know for future, because then you can utilize like this knowledge for your better results. So this context, like called a prompt in the end, it can be also a question. It goes in, first to proxy service, and at this place there will be some filters applied. So it can be for filters for hate speech, for some private information, and after that this cleaned prompt will be sent to OpenAI LLM. And LLM is large language model. Most likely you heard about it already after this couple of years. And specifically this LLM will be trained on vast quantity of public code. And your prompt, it's nice to mention that it will be discarded after LLM will give you suggestion. So that means your context, your code won't be used to train the model. And then the suggestion will go back again to proxy service. Again, some filters will be applied because you want kind of control what LLM generated. In the end, it's automatic process, so it can be some security vulnerabilities.
I can elaborate on this a little bit.
Sure.
So your prompt and your question being thrown away, that's only when you have a business license or an enterprise license. If you have an individual license, then there's a setting you can opt out, but you're by default opt in. Yeah. So that's why if you have an enterprise or a business, you do want to have a business license for your developers, else you will.
So you want to control a little bit, maybe developers.
You have more control over your data being maybe leaked to the model, or being trained up on. Yeah, you might not want that. Yeah.
So yes, bunch filters again applied, and then in the end, the suggestion will pop up in your development environment. So this is how it works. Nice to know. Another thing, like theoretical thing that's also nice to know is GPT. So if you're following the trends, probably you've heard a lot, GPT, ChatGPT. And then in the end, like, what is that? It's a generative pre-trained transformer, and this is just type of LLM that kind of powers the, GitHub Copilot or ChatGPT. So as any other product, it has several versions. So you heard about GPT 3.5. It's used for completions. It's faster, it's cheaper, and the more advanced version, GPT-4, also used, but for different cases. It's for Copilot Chat. It's more powerful, accurate, but maybe slower. All right, so that is what was theoretical knowledge that we will need, most likely. And I will give it to Thijs to continue with some practical examples.
Thank you, Yuliya. Okay.
Here's this.
Yeah,
yes.
Probably don't need it now, but
no, it's
in
fine.
a sec. So let's first start with a demo of what Copilot is. If you haven't seen it yet, it's still nice to know what Copilot is. So we can then show you some more advanced demos. So let's change to our solution. So just like the PowerPoint, we base it upon the Wright brothers. So we also created an API called the Wright Brothers API. And there's also a front end related to that. So for the Wright Brothers API, we have a solution file, and here we have a project called the API. It has two controllers. It has the plane controller, and it has the flight controller. The plane controller is a little bit more simple, and the flight controller, we added some more advanced scenarios where we can do some advanced demos. We also have some models, a flight model and a plane model. This is just a plain old class with some properties. And also nice to know, we have a HTTP file where we can do some HTTP calls fast. But let's start with the plane file. So what if we want to add an extra property to the plane file? Copilot will right away suggest me a property that Copilot thinks that's the most suitable, but I can also adjust it a little bit by typing a comment, like I want an image. And then Copilot is going to suggest me an image, and it knows it's a string because it's a URL probably. So when we then go to the planes controller, I have the planes controller is very simple. It's a plane controller. It contains a list of planes. It has a getAll method, a getById method, and a post method. These are some REST methods. And I just added an image to the property, to the class. So when I then start typing in planes controller, it will automatically suggest me a image URL because of Yuliya you about the context. It uses plain as context, and then it will suggest images. So let's complete them. These are non-existent images, but you get the drift. What we can also do is Copilot knows this is a REST API. So when I go to the bottom of the file, it will immediately complete a put method because it's missing. And then it will also right away implement the put method. And then I can also, I heard something. Then it will also suggest me a delete method because that's the last method that's missing to delete an airplane. And then when I then want to suggest, it's gonna suggest me more stuff. And I also want a search method, so I'm gonna type search planes by name. Copilot even suggests a comment for me, exactly what I wanted. And then it's gonna complete a search.
You wanted it, yes.
I think I wanted it, yeah. Yeah. So this is Copilot completing the methods for me, like right out of the box. I think they are okay. I do need to test them, of course, if they are working, but they look about right. So what Copilot also can do, for fun, we added a couple of airplanes in our log messages. And the fun thing is that when I then type log, it will suggest a log method for get with the same airplanes. And the nice thing to know about this is that Copilot is constantly adapting to the style you're then using in your code. Also, when I remove the 2 airplanes, I then use 1. And then when I add a log method here, so Copilot didn't adjust the context just yet. Sometimes it's really fast. Yeah. Let's try another one.
Yeah. So it's also about a little bit of perseverance.
So now it does take into account the new context. So I'm a bit fast, but if you may be a bit slower on developing, then it worked for you. So and this is Copilot completion. It's constantly giving you suggestions, kind of like it's reading your mind. You also have Copilot Chat. So if you install the Copilot Chat extension, which is you have a lot of extensions. So here you have 2 extensions installed to get Copilot working. You have GitHub Copilot and GitHub Copilot Chat. It will then ask you to log in with your GitHub account, and then it will attach your license to them. And once you install Copilot Chat, it will give you this chat window. And then you can ask stuff like, at workspace, explain this repository. And what at workspace does, it will like analyze your project files, and then it will kind of find the most relevant files to answer this question. So in this case, it found, I cannot click on the used references, but it will now tell me like, hey, there's a labs project, there's a Playwright UI test, there's an API, there's a front end, and then some relevant files. So it immediately gives me a nice overview of what the solution looks like with this simple question. So that's the first demo for completions. Oh, right. So that was the first way of using Copilot. It was the core, but let's continue. What Copilot can also do is improve your code. And to improve the code, I need a clicker.
It's the wrong one.
Yes. To improve the code, we are going to use Copilot Chat. And with Copilot Chat, you have all these agents. You just saw me using at workspace, but there are also a couple of more. There's at terminal, which gives you some it's kind of the system prompt of Copilot, these things. So terminal will then give you answers about things you can do in the command line. And VS Code gives you access to a configuration of VS Code. You also have slash commands. I don't use them that often, but sometimes it's nice that you have some shortcuts. Slash test I use quite often, explain sometimes, but here are some commands that you can use to quickly do something in Copilot Chat. I'm just used to just writing out things I want to achieve, but this could be nice for you. And we're going to show these also in the demos. And there's also hashtag commands. So hashtag commands give some extra, can add some extra context to your prompt. So if you use file, you can attach a file to the context. And if you have editor, it will use the visible source code. And with terminal selection, it will then put the selected text in the terminal to your context. And these are very powerful commands.
I think it gives kind of a higher priority to the selected code.
Yeah, it gives some more priority. Yeah, and if it's not in context yet, you do add it to the context. Yeah. So let's see some of these things in action. So let's clean up the workspace a little bit. So what we did for these demos, because we're going to show you a lot, we create some pre-made prompts. It's called prompt engineering, which we're going to talk later. So we are confident that the things we show you work. If we're going to do it from our heads, it might not work. And then we are frustrated it's not working. But it's probably also you, when you're going to use Copilot, you want to experiment what works for you, refine prompts, etc. So what we're going to do is go to the flight controller. So the flight controller contains a little bit more advanced methods. So we have also a list of flights, just like the planes. We have a post, get, an update method. And for now, I'm going to show you the update method. And what I can do is, when I select the update method, do right-click, there will be a Copilot context window. I can start an inline chat, and then I can ask, refactor this method to make it more readable and maintainable. And Copilot is now going to make some inline adjustments to my code, changing the code. So what I see that it has done is, like, it puts the if on a new method and then returns not found right away. So it removes one indentation from the code. It's more readable. I don't always trust these results. You still want to have unit testing in place to validate your code is still working. But the more you use Copilot, you're going to start trust the suggestions more. I can accept it, and then it will refactor my code. And as you see, it pasted it still kept the previous code, so that's not perfect.
I think you can do it the same through the chat, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you. But I do want to do a simple refactor, like update is too generic for this method. It does a lot more, or does something different. So I want to update this name, because naming things is hard in programming, right? Update the selected method name. And now it will update it to update flight status, because that's what this method does. So I can quickly update this method name. So Yuliya told me, gave me a nice suggestion to use chat to do this stuff, because then you get a very nice explanation of what is had refactored, which you don't get in inline chat. So
yeah, like whatever was mentioned, that the different models are used, GPT 3.5 and GPT-4. So chat maybe like give you a bit better results.
Well, I do think inline chat uses GPT-4. Yeah. Okay. So what we can then also do is we can select this method like so. Then we go to Copilot chat, and then we say #selection to have the selected code as my context, and then ask it to improve the code to make it more readable. And then it says, hey, your code is quite long, and you might want to improve it by making it smaller and make it separate some methods. So it also gives some explanation about why it does things, which is also good to know as a developer. So it extracted the method, it put some things into indentation, it escapes earlier from the code. So this code is more readable, but still, I would still have unit test this code. Hey, but hey, you can do that with Copilot too, and Yuliya will show that in a second. Mm-hmm. So this is how Copilot can improve your code. And then the magic word of this, since ChatGPT came out, is prompt engineering, of course. We all need to be prompt engineers. It's not that hard, prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is crafting questions, instructions for AI to enhance the quality of the results you get. And there are some basic techniques to that. You can use zero-shot prompting. If you just use Copilot, you will probably do zero-shot prompting. You will just say, do this for me, do that for me. Come on, do that. But you don't give it examples, you don't give it extra context to do something, so your solutions will be very generic with zero-shot prompting. So what you can also do is one-shot and few-shot prompting. So when you ask it a question, you also give it an example like, this is your input property, and this is what's in it. And also maybe give it something to output to, give it an example. So let's show you some of these prompt engineering techniques. So that's the third way, is prompt engineering. So let's go to VS Code. Let's close it. So let's go to prompt engineering. So for this exercise, we've prepared in the flight class, we prepared a flight log signature, the same as I just showed in the slide. So if I go to the flight, there is this property. And yeah, this is just to give you example what's in there. And we want to parse this string. We want to parse it to a model, an object. So let's go to the flight. And then I'm gonna copy a prompt, the same one I just showed you, with a little bit more context. So what we're gonna do is open the flight. It was closed again. Okay. Yeah, this is VS Code. If you click it once, then it doesn't keep it open. Need to get. Why is it not opening? Yeah, I'm double clicking it. Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, so I just copied the prompt. So I used the hashtag editor, which now has this part of the screen, like everything that's now visible as code, it puts that into context. So everything that's visible. Create a C# model for the flight log signature, and also give it some technical requirements. As you see, I'm starting to use Markdown for prompting, so I can like group things. And what it also does is it gives you a nice output in Visual Studio in chat. So it now formats your input. So now it's going to create a flight log signature class for us. And it has 4 properties. It has a parse method. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And then it also does some date formatting. So I can now use what Copilot Chat has is some quick action. So I can copy the code, I can insert into cursor, and I can also insert into new file. But let's for now insert into cursor. And then I need these usings on the top. Okay. So now it created the flight log. Now I go to the flight model again. And when I enter, I want a new. Sometimes you have to nudge it a little bit because it's going to suggest, but if you then steer it into the right direction, it gives you, and now it's going to parse it for you. For me. Okay, so now I have this flight model. If I then go to the examples to do an HTTP call. So now I'm going to submit a new airplane like this. I'm going to do send request. I need to rerun the API. .NET run. I'm going to send a request. And you see that the flight log signature is now parsed in a object. So that's the third demo. Oh, this is your slide.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Thijs. now I will going to tell you another story. Right, so let's talk a little bit about testing and how GitHub Copilot can also streamline testing. So I hope that a lot of people agree that writing tests is a kind of a best practice, that it's bring your code to a better quality and make it more maintainable. But as any best practice, it comes to some comes with some challenges, and sometimes we find out ourselves in the environments which have some time constraints. For example, so we don't have time to write tests. Can happen most likely in our lives, or we do have time, but then some developers can argue that it's the most satisfying or challenging work that you want to do. So sometimes it's boring. All right, let's see how GitHub Copilot can help you a little bit with this. So we start with unit testing, of course, because everyone starts with unit tests. And well, of course, what is unit test? It's a testing like some components, small components in isolation. And the concept of unit tests goes really well with the design of GitHub Copilot and design of LLMs and how does it work, again, behind the scenes. Because if the component is small, that means you can provide full context. So you can imagine that if you're writing integration tests, probably they're scattered around 5 files, right? If you're writing unit tests, it's just like some small method. That means there is a higher chance that you will get some more accurate results. All right. And another one is acceptance testing. We will skip integration testing at this moment. It's still possible to use your creativity still to get some useful tips or starting point, but we won't talk about it today. So we'll talk about acceptance testing. For those who know it or tried it, it's about end-to-end testing of your system and ensuring that the system follows the users or requirements. Right, and if we're talking about .NET ecosystem, one of the tools for acceptance testing is SpecFlow. It supports the popular frameworks, XUnit, NUnit, and for describing the features it uses Gherkin language in the format given when then. So this is just like in a nutshell, because it's not a talk about acceptance testing. And again, so it comes with challenges that it's not the most fun work to do if you write an acceptance test. It's useful because it's living documentations. You can include it in your pipeline, so automated acceptance testing, so it can also work as a regression test. So it's useful, can be useful. So let's see how GitHub Copilot can help overall with tests with a small demo. So we're back to Visual Studio Code. Let's close. Why doesn't it work?
Oh. Let's plug it in again.
Yeah, let's turn it off and turn it on. No?
Yes.
Yay.
Ooh.
All right. Otherwise, we would need to think about some other, ways to entertain.
Yeah, we can only show 6 ways. Yeah.
Yes, or 3 ways. All right, so we are back to the same solution. And now, we have this controller, the flight controller, and plane controller. And plane controller already have some tests. So I want some tests for flight controller. So I'm going to the prompts. And first I will start with really simple prompt. So I'm not opening, I will close this file as well, like I'm not giving it any context, and I'm just interested what will be the results. So I just ask generate test for flight controller. Let's see. Sure, and it always tells you sure, so it's really reassuring, right? So in the end, what's happened, because we don't give a lot of context, it says, well, there is this flight controller test. Most likely you have getFlights method because it's flight controller, right? There is some flight service, mock.
So this is a zero-shot prompt.
Yeah, so
you
this
give
is,
it
yeah.
no context at all. It's just trying to guess
Yeah.
what you want. Yeah.
So GitHub Copilot tries to guess. So, okay, flight controller. I know the name flight. I'm going to, be creative. So probably you don't want this. But if you, try it and then you feel frustrated, you just need to know that you didn't give it a lot of context. Okay, so let's try to make it better. So now I will generate test for a specific method. Let's see. So we will go to flight controller. There is a method that, was it planes? Okay. Well, Thijs added a search method. Well, let's say I want to generate test for this one, search method. I will clean the history because history can actually maybe have some influence on your results. And I'm going to paste this prompt. So I'm using tests kind of helper. Let's and I'm also using selection helper and also file plane controller tests. Because there is actually existing tests already. Let's actually open it as well. I'm going to pin it, and then let's go to planes controller again.
You do need to change the hashtag file.
Yeah, so this is because I'm just copy-pasting. Sometimes it doesn't take it, doesn't find it. So I'm going to do just file, and then I'm going to do this. So now it's blue, so I expect that will work better. So let's see, what will it give us with a really small context. So it's generated, well, 2 tests, 3 tests, what? I would expect, I think 2. Let's see, search by name returns correct planes when name matches. Sure. Search by name returns empty list when name doesn't match. And search by name returns all matching planes when name is partial match. So it's not that bad, right? So if you would write tests from the scratch by yourself, most likely you will end up to the very close result as this. Alright, so that was regarding unit tests. There are much more ways, but there is a limited time, so we're not going deeper into this topic, but let's look into acceptance tests. So I have another prompt for acceptance tests. Let's open plane controller, the selected method still, and then, then let's ask this. I want to generate spec flow feature and step definitions, and actually I also want to look at it at the existing file, because there is already existing step definitions. Well, let's be this. Well, now we wait, just as usual. So first it says, I'm going to create a feature file for you. Give some scenarios that kind of make sense. Search for a plane by name, and then it also gives the step definitions. So in the end, of course, you can refine with a prompt, like if you want some specific maybe frameworks to be used, if you want to use, I don't know, fluid insertions, or you want to use 6 units. in the end is a good starting point. And from here, for example, you can insert into new file, and this also you can insert into new file. All right, so that was about testing for this time. Well, another topic that we want to share with you is troubleshooting. Well, GitHub Copilot is quite useful for debugging and troubleshooting. The reason is, well, you can get exception, you can ask it to explain your exception, analyze your existing code, suggest some refactoring. Then if you write comments or documentation, can help you to write this. And in the end, we just saw that it also can help you to cover it with unit tests or, well, with some other tests. Let's see. We can also show some demo for this. So I'm going to, again, clean up. Yes. And then... it's still running, right?
Yes, it's running.
Okay, that's nice. Right, so we have this HTTP setup, well, we can call existing methods. Let's see, we're going just to send requests.
Lightning strike, right?
Yes. This one. And let's see what happens. Well, there is a lot of text, but I do know that there was a problem with the code. So if you look here, so you see that there is a stack overflow, and then the problem is at flight controller lightning strike. So we can go to this flight controller and see what is all about. So we have lightning strike methods. Well, doesn't make maybe much sense, but it's for example, it uses recursion. So we just want GitHub Copilot to help us to fix this problem. So let's see. I'm going to just copy the prompt and chat about it. All right. Well, it's nice to usually have it also in the editor just for the context, but it's not necessary. Like the most important part is that the file is opened and I selected the error. Sorry.
Is it selected still?
The error, let's see.
Ah, yes,
I think it is selected. So let's see how can it help us. So first it describes the error message indicates stack overflow.
Yes,
well, there is an infinite loop. So in the end, it tries to give you the suggestion how to refactor this method to fix it. And in the end, you can just select it and, well, maybe copy it. All right. So
this is how Julia connected your IDE basically to the terminal and also add some more context to, yes, troubleshoot an exception basically, connecting the terminal with the IDE.
Yes. All right. The next thing that we want to show you is, well, this again amazing visualization.
You probably missed the airplane.
Yes. To keep your focus.
So Julia told you about unit testing, but Copilot or an LLM can also visualize stuff. So it can think about a UI. So for this demo, we prepared a Dawn of Aviation Wright Brothers front end. It contains a lot of moving parts, some animations, and it's all built with Copilot. So I just prompted Copilot to make this UI, make stuff move, make stuff animate. It was really fun to do. And what we want to do first is add a new button there to add a new airplane. So, and then for the second demo, there is some performance issue in the front end, and we're gonna analyze it and fix it. So here you see the flight details, and there's a airplane loading, spinning, and you might see it crash, but let's see.
We have maximum 10 minutes.
That's enough.
I added 5 more.
So let's clean up. So we are don't
so
need the backend now.
This talk is about that you also need to clean up.
Clean up your mess.
Yourself, yes.
So we also have a Wright Brothers front end. It's a React application, and it contains a source with some pages. It contains some components and some other stuff to make it work. So for the first demo, I showed you to add a button to the homepage, and that homepage had a banner and it had a list of planes, and we want to add a button to it right here. So I prepared a prompt to create a button, which I'm gonna take from here. As you see, the prompts are getting bigger and bigger, so this is really where prompt engineering comes in. So I'm gonna paste this. So what I'm going to do is I create a button which routes to the new plane page, and I also tell it something about design. I want to base the design upon the planes list, which is already styled like I want. So I say style it like the planes list. Then also add some, I want to add an icon to the button, some spacing, and I want to use, and some technical requirements, because it sometimes doesn't know which library to use. So I give it some extra specifications. Now it's going to generate a button, which takes some time. I can also just paste the result, which I prepared, which is faster than Copilot. But I can also wait. So now it's going to add an add plane button with a lot of Tailwind classes, because I use Tailwind to style the CSS. And then when I do insert into file, I can save it, then do button.tsx. So it will create the new button page. Then I can import it at plain button. And I haven't shown the front end yet. Oh. So here you see that an add plane button, which has this slight tilt movement. The backend is not running because Yuliya crashed it.
So
Thank you, Yuliya.
Blame. Let's say Yuliya.
Yeah. Yes. So here you see the planes, and you see the slight tilt movement, like a flying plane. You see some moving parts, and here it added a button in the same style with a plus icon, which is also tilting. So this is how you can apply style to it. Okay, so I then gonna skip the next demo. So let's dive right into. I was also gonna add a form. For now, I can show you the screenshots. I think I'm just gonna continue with screenshots, else I cannot show you everything. Okay. I'm sure.
We're running out of time.
Okay. Let's unhide it. So we were already prepared for this to happen. So this is where I created the button, and then it added it. Here the button is slightly different. The Copilot gives different results. So what it did, it took the editor, it used a new plane. It then took the plane file. Oh, this is already the form. This is the new demo, sorry. So I want to add a form to the new plane page. So it's gonna use the plane method, and it generated this amount of code to make the form. So it uses yup, it uses formic, all with Tailwind classes. With a simple prompt, it creates a huge amount of code which someone has to review. And then there is this form, which is also styled. It contains some elements. And then now for the number 8, that's improving performance. So you see the airplane flying. And when now the plane is loading, and when there's an exception on the back end and the plane explodes, something crashed. So yeah, I had a lot of fun making this, as you can imagine. So something broke. So we're gonna analyze. We see that the calculate aerodynamics method broke. Calculation took too long, and that's because it's calculating prime numbers, and it took 4 to 5 seconds to calculate these prime numbers, which is too long. So we're gonna investigate it, and Yuliya also showed it. Do the terminal selection. Then I have a prompt which says, what is wrong with the performance? And then I also select the flight controller, and then it's gonna explain like, hey, you're calculating prime numbers in an inefficient way. Oh yeah, I also had these animations. So this is the prime number method, and Copilot suggested it to make it more efficient. And after doing it, it took only 11 milliseconds, I think. So that's a pretty big performance improvement, and you can do this with all your code, with all your for loops, you can do it. We can also make UI tests with Copilot. Oh, yeah, it's skipped. Oh, I need to unhide the slide, sorry. Unhide the slides. So to make a completely new project, you can use the /new command to scaffold a completely new project. I can give it a test scenario, like open a new plane, fill out the form, give it some requirements of what it needs to, what library it needs, and some things to use Playwright for UI testing. And this is important. Give me a complete solution. Copilot will else give me empty files, which is not very useful. So Copilot will give me the files, like scaffold a new project with a package JSON. It contains a test file and how to set up Playwright. That's here. And when I click Create Workspace, I can create the whole project in my VS Code. And when I then run the test, this one went successfully in the first run, filling out the form and then passing the test, which was the first time I took some prompt engineering to do that. So that's visualizing with VS Copilot. And now for the most advanced demo.
Well, it's not the most advanced demo, I would say, but well, it's the last topic. Yay! You're almost free to eat. All right. So we will come back about a little bit about prompting. So there are different ways of prompting, and one of them is chain of thought. It's quite powerful. So what does it mean? Overall, LLMs are really great for generating coherent, human-like language. But they are not really great to solve some logical problems. Probably you played with ChatGPT and you try to maybe ask it for some math problems. It's not always good. Most likely it's not good. But like, if we are thinking about how we as a human, try to solve it, if we face some challenging problem, we try to divide it into some sub-problems or like sub-steps. So we are trying to think step by step. So the essence of chain of thought is actually the same. We are trying to teach LLM to use the same approach. So try to break a really complex problem into sub-steps. And also kind of think out loud. Not just provide me the answer, just also explain me how you came to this answer. And usually it also comes together with an example, like how did I, as a human, came to this result. So, for example, we took some fictional property, some aerobatic sequence. So this is just some letters, some numbers, and then we're trying to explain what does it mean. So there is a maneuver, so loop, roll, spin. There is also number will represent count. So also the letter represent difficulty, and then you need to multiply it when you try to calculate the difficulty. And then there is some business logic, because why not? Let's make it more difficult. So a roll after a loop is a score double. Why not? Well, again, it's all fictional, just for example. So how would the chain of thought reasoning look? So you will give example, and then you will try to explain how me as a human came to this total 22. So, and then you break it step by step, the calculation. So clear, I hope. So yeah, the total of it should be 22. So like a property should indicate some number in the end, like the difficulty. So if you look into the prompt, and as you can see, the prompt becomes more difficult and difficult. This one will include like initial explanation, example, but then also step-by-step guide, how did we came to this property. So if you will feed this to the, for example, well, to the Copilot, in the end it's produced kind of a quite solid model with a parse method, and if you run it, because we did it, in the end it gave us the right example, like the right result. Difficulty was 22. So the moral of the story, well, let's not yet talk about the moral, but there is also another way, well, another taste to chain of thought, a zero-shot chain of thought. So there is this idea that if you just in the end of your prompt add let's think step by step, it can enhance your result. So try it out. So yeah, talking about the moral of the story, that regardless if you're using ChatGPT, if you're using Copilot, now it's worth looking into prompt engineering. There are like, I think, 10 ways or maybe more at this moment, and if you want to push the limits of LLMs, just read about it. And for example, this is, well, one of the resources when you can read about different ways how to write prompts. I will give you just a moment. Or you can, Google and find something also. Ask ChatGPT. All right, so yeah, we came to the final thought, and I will give it to Thijs.
Yeah. So to finalize this presentation, what's very important is set clear goals. So give Copilot a goal, provide it detailed instructions of what you want, and just keep refining. I think some of these prompts took about 20 to 30 efforts to get to a solution that was worth showing here, like one time right. Sometimes you get a solution that's like 95% right, and you have to adjust it a little bit to make it work.
It's all about learning.
Yeah, learning to use the tool. You really need to make flight hours. Yeah, it's no pun intended, right? And yeah, just use creativity, exploration, see what's possible. I think anything is possible if you just provided context and the right prompt. Don't rely blindly, verify, create your unit test, have still pull requests in place to verify code. Don't accept anything Copilot writes. Yeah, you still need to check it. And don't expect instant perfection. You really need to use it. It's not first time right.
This is Copilot, this is not main pilot.
No, it's your Copilot. Yes. Yeah, you're still the pilot. So how to get started with Copilot if you haven't already. So there are some documentation on GitHub to quickly start. Microsoft has created a Copilot Adventures with some similar labs. And I recently have created a YouTube channel, some marketing here. Nice that so many people showed up. And there's also a QR code to go to Copilot Clips. And some advertisement for Xebia. We are helping companies enabling Copilot. Copilot doesn't work for you if you just hand out a license. People will use it and then stop using it. You really need some onboarding experience. And
some labs.
We help customers doing that. We now have a project to onboard 2,500 people at some customer. And that's really cool if so many people start using this tool. So that's it.
That's it. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming. Yes.